China Uber Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito, coming soon to the Capitola Mall food court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! And some good news, an update. Kaito is now open in the mall. A very good afternoon. This is China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO. I'm Bill Graff. I'm here with my co-host Nan Su, who is a senior reporter from the Epoch Times, and Amy Howe, a survivor of the re-education camps of the Chinese Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao. We have a great program for you today. We'll bring in one of our colleagues who knows a lot about China. That would be Michael Olson. He'll be here in just a minute. We do want to say good afternoon to all of you and remind you that before we bring Nan and Amy on, just to let you know, we do have a website, ChinaUberAlice.com. It's a whole lot of information about today's program and past programs. Please go there and check it out. All right. Good afternoon, Nan. How are you?
Okay, everyone. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about. First of all, a very familiar voice to our audience, Michael Olson, is going to talk about a piece of a history about rectification. It's
rectification?
That's it. It's a part of the history of Chinese Communist Party that not many Americans know about, that he's going to bring to all of us. And later we are going to talk about pollution in China.
Oh boy. The
latest report shows China produced 27% of greenhouse gas.
No,
27%.
Better way to put it is China pollutes the world twice as much as the rest of the world combined.
And think about that. You know, when we see this kind of shocking news, I'm not sure if many Americans actually realize we are paying China to do these pollutions, to pollute the world. Like, the more investments our corporations go to China to invest over there, the more pollution they'll make, and then we'll pay them to clean it up. So it's all our money. It's either the money from our corporation or the money from our taxpayers. So we're going to talk about that later. And of course, before we jump into all the subjects, we're going to first have our usual segment from Amy Howe. Amy spent more than a decade of time in re-education camp because of Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao. So, hey, Amy, what are you going to bring us today?
Hi, everybody, and good afternoon.
Hi, back.
Today, okay. Today I'm going to talk about the story of my mother. So last Sunday is Mother's Day. Actually, it's 8th year Mother's Day without the mother. My mother passed away 2013. So on that Mother's Day, and I wrote something about my mother. I say that my mother, the title is "My Mother is an Angel." So every year, Mother's Day, I always wrote some story about her. And when I started my story, I say the first thing is not because she's my mother, so that's why I call her Angel. And in fact, and she is an angel. And I still don't know until today. I think this Mother's Day, I didn't write anything. I just posted some pictures. And because the day before, I had a dream. And she come into my dream. And I asked her, I said, you know, every year I write something about you and your story. Are you happy about that or not? And she said, you know what? God knows everything. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to say anymore. I say, really? So That's why I wake up. I say, Mom, don't leave. I have a question for you. And she said, what question? You always ask a question. You're still the same little girl. I say, yeah, my question is, I write about you. I say that the title is, your story is My Mother is an Angel. Are you a real angel from heaven, or you become an angel and go over there? So my mother smiled and she said to me, she said, well, you will find out by yourself. And then she left. So I woke up, so I decided that maybe this year I'm not going to write anything. So I just looking for some pictures. I found the one picture. I was 6 years old. My mother 36. And the place I live in Shanghai, next door, is an eye clinic. So that year, I think it's 1958, and they tried to have a campaign and post some pictures to against the one of the eye diseases was very popular in China, especially to the children, so may cause the blind. And so the picture, it's a series of pictures, and because they saw my mother was carrying my hand, we walking, so hey, we need somebody to do as a model. So like I had to wash my hand, they take a picture, and the mother will give me eye drops, they take a picture. So that's the one picture left. It's still very good pictures because it's done by a professional photographer. And the last picture I found is the last year. It was 2013, and she was in nursing home. And that time she already lost the ability to speak. And she was holding a teddy bear. I just hold her, and she held the teddy bear very tight, because when she lost her the function of her speech, and she always gestures something to me, and like she see her coming, and she hold the teddy bear very high, and then point at me and point her. So I say that, is that you means you love me? And when I was a child, you hold me just like you hold a teddy bear. She was knocking her, So each time it always make me very touched, because, people, when they're getting old and may lost their speech, especially last lingo around those years. And but they still actually, even they cannot say the words, but they still have lots of things to say. So I think that, always had to try to communicate it with them, and to say something what they wanted to say. Just still make kind of communications, and especially the love. Love never die, and you always can express in different forms. And so I took these two pictures, and the other picture during those years, and posted on the internet. That's a place in the WeChat I always send articles about my mother's story. So some people, they saw it, and my friend, and they just respond to me, said, how come no story this year? And I said, well, I had a dream, so I write a little bit about the dream. I said, that's why I didn't write a story. Maybe God knows everything. I really don't have to say more. Maybe that's advice from my mother, And then, and some people, one of my friends, I think she used to work for Stanford. She told me, she said, I wanted to tell you something. She said, I have a friend, and she wrote a book about her mother and also her stepmother, and 2 books. And did ever you read that? I said, no, I didn't. So he sent it to me. So I read about her. Those 2 mothers, her 2 mothers, they are communist officers, very high rank officers. And so I thought it was, some kind of a memoir, and for how much their mother loved them or whatever it is, but just after I read it, I was shocked because the first book about he said, I have such a mother, and that's the title. I said, what kind of such a mother? And it said that how her mother was absolutely no feeling and for her children. And the relationship is strictly class struggle because the mother think, all her life is dedicated to Communist Party. And they supposed to devote everything and how they can relate it to the family, marriage, children, and had to put the party's interest in first. Had to use the Maos guidelines to evaluate it. Their husband and their children is, the comrade or the enemy, or by how they devoted to the party, how they, follow the Mao. If not, they are immediately becoming enemy. I was shocked, because later I called my friend. I asked his friend, I said, do you know that this woman, and her father is very high-ranking Chinese officer in the Chinese party, and so she is like after she wrote the book is in Chinese, of course, and so it's a lot of comments because they say that it call her traitor or everything else, and how dare you describe your mother and tell the truth about your mother is, Chinese Communist Party, how to make a human being become evil, So that, I think, later on, Mr. Olson will talk about rectification. So that was a start with in Yan'an in 1941, when Mao, after the long march, they arrived in the inner area of in China, and they started their revolution, the party. So actually, he took the power of the party and started all kind of movements. Rectification is one of the famous ones. They make everybody, all the Chinese Communist Party members, and becoming and basically no longer a human being. Just like the man said, they're against all the humanities. And if you are human and you love your children or your husband, they immediately become guilty, and because you didn't put the party's interest in the first. And so I wanted to talk about my mother. And of course, she's not a Communist Party member, just opposite. She comes from the so-called class enemies family. And my grandpa, and he graduated in missionary school and then go to the Zhejiang University in Shanghai, and later on and study and business in the London Business School. So basically, he's a Western educated person. He coming back and have a partnership with the British and American, and build those resorts in Beijing, because in Beijing summer is very hot, so they need build some resort in the mountains, so much cooler. And so I think they have 7 hills in that area near Beijing. So he had a partner with American and British. They built 7 resorts, all Chinese architecture. And now the only one left, and also totally renovated. And so my mother's come out that kind of family, and so it's very unusual. And she's not just an educated woman, also her father, she's the first daughter in the family, so her father sent her to a French school in Beijing. And, that time in China, for the girl, and send her to the French school is very unusual. So she's very, very lucky. I would say, right? So born to the family, they have a privileged life. But that life was shortened very fast. And when she was 15 years old, and something very, very bad things happened to her. Today, I don't think I have time to talk about that story. And I want to talk about is the one story, which was when I escaped from Yunnan, and and because the Communist Party officer in my workplace was trying to sexually assault me, and then I fight with him and injured him, and then therefore put me in jail, and then I escaped to Shanghai. And so for 3 years in my own home, I'm like a fugitive, because in China you had to have your resident permit, and otherwise you're illegal. And you not just not get food, and also they will evict you, immediately arrest you. Actually, they did try to send a police officer to my home to search everything. And of course, my parents, all neighbors, nobody turned me in to the police department. So at least at that time, I still, the people I still believe faith in a human being. So still have a lot of nice and decent people, right? And I said, but I needed to get my permit back. If Yunnan, they agree to let me go, so eventually I can apply resident permit in Shanghai. So, but that's a very, very difficult thing. So I'm talking about my mother. My mother is very, very gentle woman. And all her life, most of the time, she's a housewife. Of course, she also volunteered herself to teach in a school or something like that. And but basically, she's a homemaker and taking care of my brother and I. We have 3 kids in the family. She's a very gentle person. I don't never see her argue with people or whatever. And but at that time, and she said that she gonna go there, fight the battle, get my resident permit back. And so it's like an impossible mission for her to do it, because everybody thinks she's useless because she's weak, she's gentle. Normally we would think the woman and strong woman, and they're not gentle. They are outspoken or whatever. But that's what I'm talking about. I think that last couple of weeks ago, and we had the show with David Master. We talked about Lawyer Master. I think one of the clips they play is they're saying is no strong woman and the only weak man. So lots of American women and even men would think that this is anti-woman or something like that. But I have a different interpretation for that, because the Chinese traditionally, a woman, a mother, a wife, a woman is gentle. But they not really weak, because my mother showed it to me that time, and that she is at least qualified for a soldier to fight any battles, but for love and her unconditional love to me, and that she had to go. And then she decided if she didn't get that back, and she never come back home. You know what happened? She was there for 8 months. And I don't know how they humiliated her every day. And different level of the governments, just kick her around everywhere. But she never gave up. She really showed to me, and she's the strongest soldier, I think, in the world. Is a really brave woman. The inner strength, for me to understand that a person is, you're gentle, but doesn't mean you don't have the inner strength. You have the inner strength. You can fight. You really can win the battle. And she did. So, all because unconditional love, mother's love. that was for me to recognize her, because people will say, okay, you will know your mother. Actually, I don't know, because in the communist regime, I get brainwashed. I always want to be a revolutionary. I always told myself, I never want to be like my mother and be a housewife, be a gentlewoman. I want to be a revolutionary, right? And that time, I really realized who is my mother. And I realized, and she is an angel. I also have other stories too. But today I just talk about a little bit of this. And then I think Mr. Olson will talk about how and the ratification and make a Communist Party member, including women, and becoming totally non-human. So
you have set the stage for our future discussion with Michael Olson. Amy, as always, your story. I have goosebumps actually listening to your story today. It's amazing.
Mother's Day story.
Mother's Day story, but a whole nother perspective. Wow. Well,
I didn't talk about the other mother. I was talking about how that she becoming the tool of the communism, and how she treated daughters like a class enemy. And we get that later, maybe next week. So I wanted to listen, how did this start? This 1941, the ratification of the Communist Party.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. Amy, thank you for your story today. And in just a moment, our audience will hear how they tie together with what Michael's going to talk about. Hang on, Amy. We'll get back to you in just a moment. We want to talk about, I've never even heard this term before we had our production meeting on the show. I've never heard this frame. I don't even know what it means.
Well,
rectification.
It was actually my first time heard the English translation of. I know what it was, but when Michael brought this and tried to talk to me about the rectification, I was like, well, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Good. I don't feel okay now. I don't feel so stupid. If you didn't know it either,
I know the history. I just didn't know how it was translated into English, right?
Well, the term rectification simply means to take something and make it right that's gone wrong. And that being the case, it's clear that Amy Howe has gone unrectified.
Yeah.
Well, that's good news for us.
Because they failed in rectifying her. But we listen to Amy's stories, shake our head. Yeah. How could anything be like that? And we think like that because we think differently than the Chinese Communist Party thinks. In considering this, and the 1941 rectification campaign was really the beginning of the Mao's Chinese Communist Party. And in thinking about the beginning of that effort, I thought about the beginning of us here in the United States and realized that we just headed off. We came to that fork in the road, and the Chinese went one way and we went the other. And the way we went was best evidenced in our Declaration of Independence. Mm-hmm. Listen to this, folks. Remember this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So today I thought we'd talk a little bit about how the Chinese Communist Party got its start. And when you hear this, you think about what you see happening in China today and throughout the world. And you wonder how on earth a political party could act like this, could take religious people like the Uyghurs or the Falun Gong, or Christians, or Buddhists, and turn them into organ donors? What kind of attitude or mentality makes that possible? So, we'll start our story in the early 1930s in southeastern China, where the Chinese Communist Party was holed up. I think they called it the Soviet Chinese Party.
Yeah, they call themselves a Soviet a government. They just call themselves a Soviet government.
So it was really influenced heavily by the Union of Socialist USSR, by the Soviets.
That was it. It was the money. Yeah, it was the Soviet Union sent their Communist Party member to China in 1921 to establish the first Communist Party branch in China, which is it's a subsidiary actually at the beginning of a Soviet Union Communist Party.
Right. So the Soviet Chinese were hanging out in the southeast China, but fighting the Kuomintang of Chiang Kai-shek, and Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang encircled them, trapped them, had them. But the Chinese Red Army broke free and ran for it, led by Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai. And thus began the Long March. Now, Billy, do you have any idea how long that march was?
You know, I was taught this actually.
How many miles?
It was 100 miles?
Well, it's a 25,000 kilometers.
Yeah, it's 5,600 miles. 5,600. So this is an incredible.
That's why they call it the Long March.
Yep.
So it's almost like they took off in southeast Georgia, and then went all the way through the south, all the way through Texas and Arizona, and ended up at the Sierra Nevadas, and then had to hike up the Sierra Nevadas all the way to Seattle, and then all the way across the Northwest to maybe like Bismarck, North Dakota, and hung out there because there was nobody to bug them there. And so there was no Kuomintang finally. They were free there. And
they live in a cave. That place.
So they were in Yan'an, and this was their place, and they hung out. And this is where Mao finally had time to settle down. Now, my first the first way I really got to know Chairman Mao was through the poetry he wrote on the Long March. Now, that's pretty romantic stuff. You know, you're on the run from the Kuomintang, and your whole purpose in life is to make a better world, to get rid of inequality. You're going to do everything right, and that is your mission. And so when they finally got to Yan'an, they started with 85,000 soldiers and Red Army, and they got there with 8,500. They lost 90% on that Long March. But when they got to Yan'an, the Chinese people fell in love with the idea that they made the Long March. So thousands and thousands and thousands of young people went to Yan'an to join Chairman Mao and the Chinese Communist Party. So all of a sudden, you've got all of these young people. What are you going to do with them? So you have to train them to be good communists, right? So during this time, Mao engaged in a different kind of writing other than his poetry, which was very romantic. Now he started writing politics and to describe what must be done to make a better world. And that's Mao's politics. Everybody who came to Yan'an had to read Mao's political writings. Okay? You had to know what Mao wanted done. That was the rules. And you had to read it and you had to understand it. So this turned to 1941. What's going on in the world in 1941?
World War I, World War II.
World War II. Yeah. What's going on in China? Japan is invaded. And the Kuomintang are very busy.
The central government is fighting against the Japanese invasion.
That's right. So the nationalist government was fighting against the Chinese, and the Chinese Communist Party was holed up at Yan'an, building a new Red Army based on Chairman Mao. And so, if you think about it, you have thousands and thousands of people. Pretty soon things get out of hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit out of... So how do you get things back in hand? Thus began the rectification campaign of 1941. So the first part of this campaign was when they get people together, and you'd have struggle sessions. So you would read Chairman Mao, and then you would get into meetings with a few friends or a bunch of friends, and you would bring up these points, and you would confess to the things that you were doing wrong. So that in that struggle, in that self-confession, you would theoretically become a better person. And through these struggle sessions, in which they're like public confessions, right? You're sitting around a table and you tell your friends.
Now everybody knows what you're doing wrong. Everybody.
Exactly.
Not me. I'm not saying a word.
Well, yes, there's only one person.
You had to.
Yeah, you had to.
You have to say something. You have to. The self-critics. It's to everyone. You have to do it.
And you can't fake it either. There was only one person who didn't self-confess, and that was Lin Biao.
That's Chairman Mao's...
Chairman Mao's good friend. Yeah, so he says, I am totally loyal to Chairman Mao, and nobody would refute him. But that's it, out of the thousands and thousands of people at Yan'an as part of the Chinese Communist Party, everybody had to confess. And so everybody then knew everybody else, because there was really no place to hide anything.
Yeah, including your family, your husband and your wife. If they don't, you have to confess.
It's a Communist Party's tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used that ever since the beginning, and they are still using it today.
Exactly, and this is where they really started putting it together. And like Amy said, you confessed yourself, but you also told on everybody else.
Well, see, that's the point I was getting at. Everybody now knows all the bad stuff about you and your family and everybody else.
Everybody knows everything.
See, here it's what Billy tried to think about. It didn't work. And you say, you're not going to say anything. Well, people will tell you bad stuff if you don't say it. So you have to say it to avoid that.
Okay.
Also, you want to be a good guy, you have to say anybody else.
Yeah.
They are bad, and including your husband or wife.
That's right.
People trust you most. Whatever they say that to you, maybe never tell anybody else. But then you had to say it.
Yeah, you say you have two bodies, right? Three of you are very close. Now, if you say Smith and Joe, right? You know something bad. So Smith did something bad. Now, you don't want to say, you don't want to criticize him. But what if Joe criticizes him? Or Joe also say, hey, Billy knows that too. Well, then everyone knows, Billy is hiding something. So this is how bad it is. They're still doing that in China today.
But wait a minute. It gets much worse than that.
Of course.
Because once it gets to this point, you can start accusing people of anything. And there's nobody to protect you.
I can hear Amy nodding her head up and down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd like to tell you about two. So this, they're camped out at Yan'an.
How long did this go on?
This is I think 2 years.
Yeah, couple years.
Couple years. This was just the beginning. Okay.
Wow.
This is just the beginning of the whole entire history.
Boy, when
of
you
Chairman
said
Mao.
we went down the other fork, you weren't kidding.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's so hard for us to look at the Chinese Communist Party.
I can't even fathom doing that in public, with all my friends and neighbors. That's just amazing.
So, well, that's what you did. So a couple of people, examples of what happened to people. There was a famous writer, Wang Shiwei, who wrote a story called Wild Lilies.
Lily.
Yes. And it was an essay that criticized the sexual appetites of Chairman Mao, along with the other privileges.
How long did he last? About 5 minutes.
Not long. Not long.
No.
Chairman Mao had him executed, and that was that. But
Yeah.
there was another a gal named Ding Ling, who was a feminist writer, a very famous writer, and she wrote an essay pointing out the unfairness of the sexual roles in the Chinese Communist Party, and she, of course, found herself in trouble, and eventually, down the line away, she did become a rather famous writer, but they finally caught up to her and took her out as well. So that was phase one of the rectification campaign. So rectification means what? Taking something that's gone wrong and fixing it, rectifying it, making it better. So it doesn't even have to go really, really wrong, right? Once you're in total control, okay, you have to keep control. And that's what it becomes all about. And that's what I learned about Chairman Mao. In working with the poetry he wrote during the Long March, romantic. Wow, what something to aspire to. Somebody who's going to make the world a better place. Then he gets to Yan'an and becomes the
worm turns.
Reality.
What is it they say about power?
Well, power corrupts. Absolute power absolutely corrupts.
And absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's phase two of Chairman Mao's first rectification campaign. He started working with a guy named Kang Sheng. Now, Kang, dressed in black, rode a black horse, carried a black whip, and was accompanied by a big, vicious black dog. And he would ride around Yan'an, terrorizing everybody. Because now you have everybody talking about everybody, right? So everybody knows who's having doubts.
Something just occurred to me. I now know where they got the idea for Darth Vader.
There you go.
Yeah.
Darth Vader.
So Kang Sheng claimed, with Mao's backing, that the Communist Party was riddled with spies and conspirators. So he went about arresting and imprisoning and torturing and executing people. And he was very, very good at extracting confessions. Billy, you didn't confess. What are you hiding, Billy?
My contempt for you, my friend.
So
that's what I'm hiding.
So Kang Sheng, he arrested and tortured thousands, 40,000 people, disappeared from the Chinese Communist Party. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Stalin, right?
People,
Joseph Stalin did the same thing, right?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
killing their own comrades, basically.
Yes, but that's where the expression "the revolution eats its own" comes from.
Right.
Because when there's no law and order, it's all personality or who's on top at the moment. There's nothing to protect you from personalities. And this was all personalities. 60 of the top party leaders were forced to commit suicide by Kangsheng. Over 10,000 people were executed and taken away. So, with this Kangsheng, Mao was able to establish supreme authority. I mean,
it really became the supreme leader after that.
Yes, that's when he.
Oh, because everybody was terrorized.
Terrorized, exactly.
Red terror, yeah.
Everybody was totally terrorized.
Darth Vader.
Yes,
he's Darth Vader.
Yeah, you think about that. Those people, most of young people, intellectual people, they with their passion of a revolution all the way from a bigger city everywhere to go to Yan'an.
Now, let me give you a story I read about rectification. Actually, it was written by one of the pretty high-ranking communist leader, communist party member who went through that. You know, he wrote a story.
At Yan'an?
He went through that rectification, and then he wrote it in the later part of his life in the 90s. So what happened, he was young at the time because romantic revolution, you know, you talk about things not really careful, right? So he ended up arrested, and then in the rectification period, and then they basically say, you're a traitor, you're a spy, you're sent by the nationalist government to spy the Communist Party, right? So who are your fellows that you doing the conspiracy all together, right?
So you have to confess who your friends are.
Yes. So
even though you're innocent,
right,
you have to cough up somebody.
You have to cough up.
It would
somebody.
be Billy. I'd give up Billy.
What's the writer's name?
I forgot his name actually.
So did he turn in his friends?
No. Well, this is what happened. Okay, so he was an innocent guy.
Right.
He was just, he was being investigated, questioned for months. And finally, he thought, this is meaningless to me. I'm coming here to join the revolution, the communist revolution, right? Now, this is meaningless. My life is meaningless, and then I really want to die. So he starts thinking of that. So now, then one day, the whole investigation team came into the door, and they investigate him. And then in the middle of the investigation, most of them left. Right, they're just taking break. So just one, the leader of the team that sit with him and talk to him, and then all of a sudden the guy pulled a gun and point to his head and say, "If you don't confess, I'm going to kill you now." And then he said, "No, I have nothing to confess, right? So I didn't do what you say that I was doing." So now then the conversation continue, and then the guy just left his handgun on the table, and then they keep talking for another while, and then the guy just stood up and said, "Oh, I'm going to take a break." So he left, and it's like he forgot his handgun on the table. So, and then he said, "Wow, now this is my chance. It's unbearable to me. I'm going to die." So he just took the gun, and then he pointed himself. He pulled the trigger. It was a pa. It was empty. There was no bullets in the handgun. And at that moment, the entire investigation team came back, say, "You passed. You're free to go now."
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
So that was that was the story. He was like 70s or 80s or something at that time. He wrote it. He's close to the end of his life. He actually wrote it. Now there was a period of China start opening up in 1989. So there was a period. 1978.
Deng Xiaoping.
Yeah, there was a period of a time China had a limited freedom. People had something so they can write some of the old stuff. So
that's when it came out.
That's when it came out.
Yeah.
But and to end the whole thing about the rectification movement, it didn't end. What happened was that people started to revolt about how totally oppressive Yan'an became. I mean, can you imagine how stultifying, how terrifying? You could not walk down the street and look anybody in the eye.
A whole society could operate under that circumstance.
Well, it started to break down.
Yeah.
Right? People started to revolt. So what did Mao do? Oh, we are going to end the rectification program, and from now on there will be no more,
That's when he started killing birds?
So he just backed...
That's another...
that's what I mean.
That's another 10 years later.
He just backed off, and then he said it's the fault of Kang Sheng. Got out of hand here. Everybody chill out, and we're just going to move on. But in fact, that became the model for how Chairman Mao conducted purges all throughout his time. There's one good example of that was the 100 Flowers campaign. In the Great Rectification, everybody was encouraged to open up and tell what's wrong. Criticize the party. Tell us what we're doing wrong. And as soon as everybody did,
they disappeared. And Mao did this time after time after time, all throughout his career. Now, is it any different today?
Well, I'll give you an example. You just talk about the guy who wrote the Mao's, let's say love story, right? Or whatever. Now, 2016.
Wild Lily.
Wild Lilies.
And 2016, there was a Hong Kong bookstore called Crossway Bookstore. 4 out of 5 of the books employees working in the bookstore are kidnapped to China.
4 out of 5.
Yeah. It was just because
80%.
That's it.
There's just 4 out of 5, but the point being they disappeared.
And they disappear, and then they all show up in China in the court. They all confess that they are doing something crime, right? Now, and the real reason that they are all arrested, kidnapped to China is really because that bookstore has been selling a lot of books abandoned in China, right? And that at that time, the most popular book,
Wild Lilies,
they were selling is the Xi Jinping and His Lovers.
Oh my God!
Yes.
So but check it out. Yeah.
We're running out of time for the first hour, so suffice it to say it goes on today, and it's not much different, Billy. Oh, God.
That's right.
Well, on that happy note, China Über Alice will take our first break, and we'll be back in just a moment. KSCO Radio is proud to present the Ghosts and Grub radio show with Paul Toshiro. Join us for our new show Fridays from 9 to 10 p.m. as Paul seeks out paranormal teams to reveal their investigative work and talk about their haunted experiences. He'll also showcase restaurant owners and chefs, talk about their favorite food creations, the culture behind them, and the haunted history of the buildings. Tune in to KSCO for the Ghosts and Grub radio show every Friday from 9 to 10 p.m. on KSCO.
If you have a home, you have problems. But in your neighborhood, you've got an ace in the hole. Hello, Charlie Friedman here with good news for all of you out there who have a garage door that needs painting, a gate that needs a hinge, or a leaking seal on the shower faucet. The good news is you can find a solution for almost every home and garden problem at your neighborhood Ace Hardware store. That's right, you don't need to go to that big box store because you can find neighborhood Ace Hardware stores in Freedom, Marina, Gilroy, Salinas, and at 2 locations in Watsonville. These Ace Hardware stores are locally owned by my friends Manuel and Carlos Rodriguez. They're almost always on hand to make certain you find the solution to your problem. So, when you have a problem, head for your neighborhood Ace Hardware store. You'll be met at the door and taken straight to the solution to your problem, and you'll be on your way soon with the solution in the bag and a smile on your face. Now at all Ace locations, pick up your Longevity, Tangy Tangerine, and Healthy Body Start Packs at great prices. Ace is the place. You're Ace in the hole.
Chef Ben here from the Back Nine Grill and Bar at the Pasatiempo exit, where we serve the very best house-ground burgers in Santa Cruz County and possibly the world. Come in Thursday for the Outlaw Burger and a pint for only $15. See you at the 9.
This is Dean Sutton, Law of the Land. Give me a call. I'm a lawyer, but you can like me anyway. We have a call-in talk show Thursdays from 8 to 9 on KSCO. You get a chance to talk to a lawyer. No fancy lawyer office, no coffee, no bill. Give me a call, and we'll try to answer your questions. You can call in with comments. You can call in with questions. We have talk about events of the day. Law of the Land, Thursdays from 8 to 9 on KSCO. You get a chance to talk to a lawyer. On the air.
Hi, this is Hema with the Holistic Mystic. I'm so excited to tell you about a show that I have on Fridays from 7 to 8 p.m. here on KSCO. Are you feeling stuck and don't know what to do? Need some help to get unstuck so that you can feel free and happy? Let's talk about it all, from spirituality to wellness to intimacy. You know, it's all connected. Keep listening for uplifting mystical readings that will give you some insights into how you can live your best life. Join me, Hema, Holistic Mystic, Fridays at 7 p.m.
Wow, what a first hour. My head is still reeling and pounding. I took a lot of civics and a lot of history in college, and I never was given any of this information, which I now realize my education was probably inadequate.
It was a secret.
Boy, I guess. Some secret. We'll be back to talk about how China is polluting the entire planet Earth. They're kicking out twice as much pollution as the rest of the world combined. Think about that one while we go to break. If you want to find out more about our program, if you've just joined us, ChinaUberAlice.com is the website. We have all kinds of information there. Please don't shy away from heading to that website. We'll be back. Amy, myself, and probably Michael Olson will hang out as well to contribute to the conversation. That's all on the way next hour. This is KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey.
Like I said, about 10 minutes. The rest of the way down Highway 1 to Monterey, that's thankfully accident-free, moving at the limit. Let's take a look at Highway 156 eastbound through the San Juan Bautista area. We got about a 5-minute delay of slow-and-go traffic through there. Elsewhere on Highway 101, southbound between Coyote and Morgan Hill, you're going to find slow-and-go delays about 7 minutes long. Your Central Coast forecast for tonight, patchy fog we're looking for. Overnight lows of 46 degrees. Tomorrow, we're going to start off with some more of that fog. It's going to be gray and drizzly. And then, hopefully, it'll burn off by the afternoon. We'll get mostly sunny skies and a high of 67 degrees. Right now, outside the KSCO studios, it is 65 degrees. Now, stay tuned. KSCO News Talk time 3:06. It is time for the second hour of China Uber Alice on KSCO.
China Uber Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito, coming soon to the Capitola Mall food court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! And the good news is we have learned that Kaito in the Capitola Mall is now open. Welcome to the second hour of China Uber Alice here on KSCO Santa Cruz. I'm Bill Graff along with Nan Su, the senior reporter from the Epoch Times, and Amy Howe, a survivor of the Chinese Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao. Also with us today is our very own Michael Olson, who actually studied Chinese at University of California, Santa Cruz. Welcome back to all of you folks. We're going to talk in our second hour today about the biggest polluter on the planet Earth.
Yeah, China contribute the kind of greenhouse gas that's equal to the entire developed world together, and more than the entire developed world together. So that's what China is polluting right now, and they have their industry. They have we talked about it once before. They use the coal power plant,
with
burning the coal,
dirty coal though.
Dirty
coal. They don't clean it up first.
Yeah, they don't wash it. They actually know what's coming, but they refuse to wash it, and they just keep doing that. And guess what? Our big corporations are still going to China, and the more they go there, the more they invest there, and China will pollute more, right? Because they got money, they will need they will when they do the economic development.
You put it best when in the before we started our program today, we were talking about it,
right.
And you said it best. You said it better than. I mean, it was beautiful the way you said it. We are paying, the Western world is paying China to pollute us.
And then we pay them to clean it up. So why do we do that?
I think that's, you're dead on. China is not polluting the world. We are polluting the world and paying China to do it for us. That dirt being put in the air is our dirt. We're paying for it. We have chased away our industry because it's dirty. And then we run down to the big box store and buy made in China because it's cheap. That pollution is not China's pollution. That pollution is our pollution.
And then we pay them to clean it up. We pay them twice. To clean up our mess.
It's not theirs, it's ours.
So I think we need to really think about what we are doing here. If we don't go there, we just do a clean energy here in our backyard. Can we do that? I think the United States absolutely had a capability to do it.
Well, California's living proof. The state of California is living proof. We cleaned up. Man, I remember when I was a kid, when I was a little kid, we would visit my grandmother and my Uncle Ray down in Southern California. And when we got to the top of the Grapevine and looked down into the valley, you couldn't see anything. It was smog. Nothing but smog. And over the years, now you can drive to the top of the Gorman Grade and look down as you drive into Los Angeles, and it's nice. There's no pollution.
Sometimes.
Well, think about the amount of cars we have driving around in Southern California, and think about how clean the air is, and it's amazing it's that clean.
Now, the key here is when we pay China, we're not only pay for the pollution, we are also paying for a growing threat to our lifestyle. Right? We're paying for two things.
Absolutely.
Who was it? Wasn't it Khrushchev that said that the Americans would pay you? How did he put that?
What's the phrase?
He would
pay you to
the rope to hang ourselves.
Yes.
So we would buy the rope from them to hang ourselves with.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. And the man might have been right.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Non is right. And maybe you should invite callers.
We have, by the way, if you want to talk to us about this or any other topic concerning what we're talking about today, please feel free to call us at 479-1080, 479-1080. We have one of those callers already. Jim is calling us from Santa Cruz. Jim, you're on KSCO and China Uber Alice.
Hey, first I want to apologize for last week when I kind of was getting a little bit you had to stop my call because I was. But anyway, what I'm getting at is I said we buy too much stuff from China. We buy everything from China.
True.
I used a different word.
Yes.
And remember me?
Yeah, you do, Jim. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just don't use that word again, okay? Stuff is a better word.
All right. Well, anyway, you guys are just making my point right now. You're saying exactly what I said. We're doing it all. You can't blame China. Any country would be glad. I don't know why we don't go to other countries. So what would it be, 10 cents more an hour than 15? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't understand. Why do they just go to China? Why don't they go to all different little Asian countries, or you know what I mean?
Well, actually, though,
Vietnam,
Jim, you made it. Jim, let me just stop you there for a second because you make a great point. Here's what we've done. We started out sending stuff to, like, Mexico, right? And then other Latin American countries. And then when it got cheaper to go to China, then we went to China. And then when it got too expensive in China, now we're going to Bangkok and places like that. I mean, we are moving around the world.
Well, first of all, Jim, I think you brought a huge point here that if we look back to our own history in the past 50 years, ever since Henry Kissinger visited Beijing. Now, I'm not sure if you know that every time when our past presidents, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, and George Bush again, and Obama, and all of them, when they went to Beijing to visit, they brought a huge group. Not just politicians, not just the government workers,
trade people,
but trade and corporation people go with them.
I know that.
I know that. So that was a strategy. That was our strategy. We think we are paying China, the Chinese Communist Party, to become better. I mean, see. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world, but I do think I have common sense. I mean, when you deal with drug cocktail or gangsters that's doing human trafficking.
As soon as we saw they weren't changing their human rights things, they weren't changing the pollution, they weren't worried about that, we should have told our manufacturers to get the hell out of there because they are screwing up the world.
That's right.
Yeah,
and
paying the money to them doesn't work.
Years.
Just like you won't change the drug cartel and the human trafficking gangsters by paying them money. Right?
Well, you know what
our government should have made our people who have vested over there move out of there. Get back home or go somewhere else because we're not allowing your stuff here anymore.
Jim makes a great
No, wait
point.
a minute. I'll tell you why that's not going to happen.
Well, I can tell you why.
Let
I know
me
it's not gonna
finish here.
happen.
The reason that is
I
not
know why
going
it won't
to
happen because of money.
The reason that is not going to happen is because our industrialists, our big money elite, have left the room.
That.
They are no longer here. They are in China. The reason they are in China is because of the possibility of getting into that market that's 5 times bigger than ours.
Once those people start making 50 cents an hour, they might buy some of our stuff.
Well, there's the market,
I mean,
and you see it with the National Basketball Association.
Oh, that's all. Yeah,
that's
a
Disney,
really good example.
You see it everywhere.
Look what happened.
It's like with that. You saw them build that Three Gorge Dam. For what? It didn't touch any of the majority of the people. It didn't help hardly anybody except the industrialists went over there.
Yeah. Now, Jim,
Power and all that stuff.
We saw a good example of what Michael Olson's talking about and what you're talking about with the National Basketball Association not too long ago.
Right.
Somebody said something that made China unhappy.
They were talking about Hong Kong.
Yeah. The next thing we know.
Yeah.
Bad
all
news happens.
Manufacturers like a Gap.
Yeah.
The back is a
And
big
we ought to
name,
be raising.
right?
We ought to be raising hell about what they did in Hong Kong.
Their website, to change like a Taiwan because when it wasn't they say Taiwan.
Yeah.
They forced them to change it.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, thank you for.
And we ought to be raising hell. We ought to be raising hell about what they've done to Hong Kong.
Absolutely.
Right there, we ought to say that's it. No more of these cell phones. No more taking pictures of your lunch so you can send it to your friends. Which is ridiculous anyway.
Listen, Jim, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
All right, bye.
All right, let's move on. We have another caller. Dan's calling us from Milpitas. Dan, you're on KSCO.
Hey, I had a quick question here. Well, two things. But the first question is there's a documentary on National Geographic called Fermentation Nation. And it's all about how the Chinese are fermenting all their food because I think it's something that has to do with the government over there that allocates the amount of food you get. So they just said, well, forget all that. We're going to have to go out to the countryside and start fermenting our food. So everybody there is fermenting their food now.
That's because they can store it longer.
Yeah, no doubt, and they're smart for doing that. But what's happening is when you're looking at the people, these people are like strong as bulls. They look so healthy because the fermentation of the food is giving them all the probiotics, and they got all their teeth, and they're talking to the older people. And I thought, oh man, they thought they had them, but they didn't. And so I'm pretty happy for that because I like to see some justification for the hell that they've been through or going through still. And that's what the power is, the fermentation of all the food that they have, and they have huge banquets. I was wondering, is there anything that you guys know about that? And I just kind of wanted to get more information.
If you were to watch videos right now of a Beijing street scene or any place else in China, you wouldn't see many fat people.
Yeah,
you just don't see it. They are not obese.
Yeah.
The second thing I had was I think China did at one time get reprimanded, but for having most of their population in some kind of permanent slavery. So they ended up moving them to or shipping them out to Western or American Samoa, where they have it's more like a territory. So it's like a federalized place, like Puerto Rico, where it's just this island now, where they're able to do kind of whatever they want. So China was sending a lot of the slave labor over there to make clothes for like Applebee's and McDonald's and the Kardashians and whoever. And I wonder if there's anything
did you say they're sending them to the western part of China?
No, western Samoa
America?
and American Samoa.
No,
Yeah,
I have never
that was
heard
the-
that.
Yeah.
It might be
Yeah,
true, but
that-
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I never heard of it.
Hey, thank you for the call. We'll research that, okay?
Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh. Amy, have you ever heard any of that?
No. I don't understand that. What?
Yeah, I don't either.
They're
So
I know they were sending, they actually purchasing lots of agricultural land in Brazil.
in
and
Brazil,
send the
yeah.
people to run the agriculture.
I have heard that they've been trying to bring food, much like the United States grows things in other countries and then ships it home. I've heard that China has a lot of agricultural interests in countries like Brazil.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Well,
it's
everywhere.
a hungry country.
Everywhere. It's like that's an African country.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they are not only polluting China, they bring their
Absolutely.
pollution to everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the point, isn't it? That's why the rest of the world is so concerned about this. Because, well, we've all seen the videos, we've all seen the pictures, and the before the Olympics, how it was so polluted, and then they turned all the factories off, and the pollution blew away long enough so they could have the Olympics.
So what are we going to do about this? I mean, it's pretty obvious that we're being so hypocritical by running around and condemning cows for their flatulence.
Yeah, exactly.
And my goodness. And what we're doing when we buy things from China is we support massive amounts of greenhouse gases. Where does that greenhouse gas go? It blows right across the Pacific Ocean on the trade winds to here. It's just, so what do? Do we just keep up this mind-boggling hypocrisy?
Well, look, you said it a few minutes ago. All of this activity is being backed by the big money.
No. By us.
No. What I mean is all the activity is the reason why we keep buying stuff and sending the pollution over there, and the reason how it still continues to happen is big money has gone to China to fund it in the first place. It's a vicious cycle. It keeps going.
We buy it.
Is it possible? You think it's possible we can get our industry back?
Well,
I wanted to buy made in USA.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
so did I, that we falsely thought being nice to China would help China get out of its, right?
yeah.
And you just said we should do the same thing for to bring the companies back to the United States. Be nice to them. Don't overtax them. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, see, there was an economic interest.
Wait a minute. What you just talked about is the economic interest.
Yeah. Well,
how does that work? An opposite for us.
Well, wait a minute.
Well,
it makes a lot of sense. If you reduce the tax, they're sitting on a lot of money that they're not bringing home because of the exorbitant amount of taxes.
Do you think they're going to bring it home just because we cut taxes?
If they
well, actually, in the last 4 years, a lot of companies coming back.
Yeah.
But have they brought the money back?
Yes, they were bringing it back. Yes,
the investments, right? So, and also, you raise the tariff for the things coming from China. And then you reduce the tax for our own corporations. So that's why a lot of the town in the Rust Belt area, they went bankrupt before. Now they're all open. The steel industry are in operation over there. Steel industry is known as an industry that provide all the high-pay jobs. So there are a lot of those towns used to be ghost towns, but in the last few years they totally revived. So we can buy American steel products now.
Well, say that again.
I said now they stop, and then I don't see anything in the next 4 years, and I don't know what's the next 4 years.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Well, let me ask you this.
Realities.
Amy brings up a real interesting point because we've flipped right back to where we were.
Yeah.
And I look at the top 10 donors to Joe Biden campaign and the top 10 donors to the Trump campaign. Trump got $17 million from the top 10 donors. Biden got $176 million from the top 10 donors, and they were all major industrialists and investment firms. So they have their money riding on China now. And Trump was the biggest threat in the world to them.
So what do you think is going to happen?
Well,
I mean, it seems like an economic roller coaster to me.
Right. Well, I think the things already happened.
That's the reality.
Give you an example. Xiaomi, that's a Xiaomi cell phone that's made in China. Yeah. It was delisted by Trump administration. Biden administration just stopped that delisting. Yeah. So now they're coming. So it used to be, on the blacklist of our Commerce Department as one of them, like same as Huawei. Now Xiaomi was, they just released their name.
Yeah, so I think China won. I think China won World War III. Without firing a thought.
I don't think China will win World War III, just like Billy's War never underestimated the United States. But
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
But we do need to stop doing those things.
Well, maybe shows like this. Maybe shows like this. I'm just speculating here, but maybe shows like this will point out that people shouldn't buy those cell phones made in China.
I have an Apple phone, Billy.
I don't.
They made in China too.
Apple is a little different.
Apple made in USA. I really want to buy everything made in USA.
Right. Apple's policy.
Where is it?
See, Apple's policy.
See, Amy makes a really good point, though. Amy, before we talk by Amy, she makes a really good point. See, I want to buy stuff made in the United States too.
Yeah.
But the problem is, when I tried to buy an iron, just a clothes iron, just a plain old steam clothes iron, we wanted to buy it for the house in Clear Lake, right? When we built the house.
It's all made in China.
Could not find it. Did not exist. You cannot buy a clothes iron made in the United States.
I think we should all start calling our representative, asking, that's our request. You guys need to make some policy, which is
make some noise.
Good for the United States, not for China.
Well, who's making the biggest noise, though? And you and I can hoot and holler all we want, but who's going to listen to us?
The lobbyists are making the biggest noise.
Yeah, it's the people who have the economy's scale sufficient to buy the government.
That is correct.
There are going to be the ones who tell us what to do. And they are not going to allow you to buy an iron made in the USA.
Or we're going to pay 3 times as much for it. Amy makes a very good point.
Yeah, for instance, today I put away, because it's not going to rain anymore, I put away the pump on the top of the pool. But then I found out that the made in China, that not the pump, is the hose and leaking again. It's just you. That's the 5th time, I'm not telling you. For 2 years, I bought 5 of them. But the way I can find it was Home Depot, Row, everywhere. There's nothing made in USA. Just cheap plastic thing,
Yeah. Well, Amy, they figured out that you're unrectified. They know all about you.
You know, when he was
socialist,
you know, Amy, when he was
I'm out.
When he was talking about the rectification process, I thought, well, I know somebody who didn't get rectified. I do know somebody personally, and that would be you, Amy. We have a repeat call here. Dan in Milpitas is calling us back. Hello, sir.
Hey, yeah, the company is called Mammoth, and if it's made in China, regardless, most of the products they have are made in the USA, and it's like the reverse of Amazon. It's called Mammoth, and Newsmax had commercials for them.
How do you spell the company's name, Mammoth?
Yeah, like the animal, like the prehistoric animal with tusks.
Oh, Mammoth.
Oh, Mammoth.
Yes, Mammoth. Yeah, and all they do with their profits is turn it around to the American public workforce, or public utilities, public servants, and it's the same thing as Amazon, but reverse, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
I'm going to look them up. Thank you for the information.
All right, thank you.
You can find it maybe USA secretly.
Mike in Santa Cruz is on the other line. Mike, you're on China Uber Alice.
Hi, guys. Thanks. Great show, as always. You just made a very interesting comment that I agree with, or two things in general. One, we live in a corporatocracy now, and corporations are more powerful than governments. And the second one is, I do believe we just lost World War III and nobody fired a shot. It wasn't a nuclear war, so that's good. But where do you see, if that's true, play that out, like what do you see for our future for the next few years? And I'll take it off the air. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. What do you guys think? Good questions.
Yeah, what's going to happen? I think we need to continuously raise the awareness to Americans what China has been doing here.
And the Western world. I don't think we ought to limit it to America.
Of course. Hey, we have listeners from Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Amy, what do you...
I'll tell you one thing. I'm leaning on optimists like Nan, and my son-in-law is an optimist too.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I'm kind of frightened because I think our ruling elite are now owned by China.
You know, I wouldn't dispute that, but I think there are more than not bought by China yet.
Point one out to me, please.
The lady
how about the head of Disney?
No,
that doesn't work.
No. How about Ms. Cheney, who got torpedoed by her own party? She spoke out. She spoke what she thought was the truth, and immediately lost all of her because she thought she was, pointing out the truth.
But I don't know what that has to do.
Well, I don't think she's
China.
bought. I don't think she's bought by China. I don't think she's bought by anybody. I think she's her own person, and I think there are other people on both sides of the party.
I don't think she has much of a say about it.
Well, obviously not. She got voted out of everything she was trying to do. But my point is, I don't think everybody's bought and sold yet.
Well, I'm not saying everybody, but what I'm saying is our ruling elite, our big money elite. I believe they have all been bought out. They've left the room.
Well, you might be right. Amy, what do you think?
I think right now, why we are so afraid of even talk about that.
No, that's a good point, too.
The question, when China become a number one, what's going to happen? People don't afraid to talk about that. They say, we're not going to be like that. We're still number one. So why we cannot facing the realities? And then we can have some kind of solution. That's what I think.
I think that there are people still painting rosy picture. I just watch YouTube. There was a Hoover. It's a Hoover in the what was that?
Yeah, the Hoover Institution.
Not the Hoover Institution. There was a JFK Foundation.
Oh yeah.
They have one guy make speech. It was an Indian guy. He was a professor, and then he came and he say, "Hey, I'm here to assure all of you Beijing's leader is not going to be someone like Stalin.
Sure.
Yeah. See, our
when is that going to happen?
Now, we had one caller who recommended Myanmar. So I just check it. Women's everyday sweatshirt, U.S. made in U.S. and U.S. cotton, $64 a piece.
Yeah, but that, you know what? I know women who would pay $64 for it.
For a T-shirt?
Yeah.
Well, no, a sweatshirt.
Sweatshirt.
Okay.
Yeah,
made out of 100% American cotton.
Yeah, 100% American cotton.
Yeah, sometimes they forge, you say, American material, but still made in China, assembly in China or something.
Well, they do have something cheap.
I saw.
Tens and Pine, human organic body shoe, cream and size 03M. And that's $28.
$28.
Yeah, that's cheap.
Well, you know, maybe the idea here
So
is...
it's called Mammoth?
Myanmar, M-A-M-A.
I'm going to go home and look it up.
M-A-M-A.
Yeah,
Oh, Mama.
I'm going to look at
Yes.
Mama. Okay. So it's not Mammoth, it's Mama.
Mama. Yeah.
Ah.
Where's Mama?
All right.
I see.
We have a caller. Gary Arnold is on the line from
The
Live
Gary Arnold?
I believe there's only one.
Okay, I think so.
Gary?
Hi, guys. Anyway, I'll keep this one pretty short. Anyway, you look at Shark Tank, which I thought, was a great TV thing to, get my kid or anybody else interested in entrepreneurship. But what you see time after time are those people that will take that product and take it over to China or Vietnam or other places in order for them to succeed. So they're not building American entrepreneurs. What they're doing is undercutting, American wages in order to, make their profits. And there was a very famous person from the Hoover Institute, Dr. Anthony Sutton, who wrote a book about Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. And it showed that it was Wall Street that was, creating that communism. The first ambassador to Red China was, Bush Sr. The second one was Winston Lord, a Reagan appointee, both belonging to Skull and Bones. The founder of Skull and Bones was shipping opium to China that caused the Boxer rebellion, and they have there's tight societies in there. But anyway, I think that the problem is, and I agree with the lady there, that Cheney is really deep state. I mean, there's YouTube visual stuff that hasn't been taken down yet, where he brags about his participating, and his speech is actually before the Council on Foreign Relations, which was instrumental in putting Mao in power. And he says, I never mentioned, that I'm a director of the Council on Foreign Relations back home in, Wyoming. People can look that up. Anyway, it's deep state. There's a lot of stuff going on. California is particularly susceptible and has been vulnerable literally for decades. And there's a book that I found. I'm surprised I found it. I'm an old guy. I'm 80. But there was a book put out by Carl Prussian. He was an undercover person for the FBI. And he wrote a book later called California Dynasty of Communism. And I think it's selling for a lot of big bucks. But the introduction of that and how we're manipulated in trying to be fair to allow, all the positions to come aboard or to be able to find some compromise where we can all live together. One only needs to look at the communist coalition governments ever since, 1918. And they crucify and kill, and I feel so sorry for the millions of people killed in Red China.
Yeah, that's
so
why
anyway, that's it. I'll let you go, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Gary, don't go away.
Oh, he already did. He already did. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Goodbye.
But
he wants the Nine and me to report the ink with him.
Mm-hmm.
He'll send the email. That's why I told him to not go away. So we report the ink. See what he say.
All right, sounds good. Oh, we have another call. Goodbye. Terry in Felton. Terry, you're on China Uber Alice.
Oh, hi. So I just had a couple comments when you were talking about decreasing the taxes for corporations so that they don't go to China. And it looks like Joe Biden's saying, let's tax them more. So that would drive more people there. And I think that's just, I think he understands that. I think the politicians know that. They're trying to push more into China. I think they're trying to crush the United States, and this is one of the ways to do it. Whereas a lot of poor people will say, yeah, tax the rich and, give it so that we don't have to pay so much. But I think that's just curious how he's trying to raise the taxes, which will drive more people there. And then the other point was, I had talked to you guys before about the 80% of the ingredients in pharmaceuticals made in China.
Yes.
And a lot of pharmaceutical companies moving there since the year 2000. So if we take their vaccines that are mostly made in China, I think they might just knock us off with that, and I think we should focus on that.
Terry actually called once before and talked about these issues. It's true. It was a great concern, especially last year. It was widely discussed because, like Pfizer, like Moderna, a lot of their ingredients, right? It's from China.
Yeah, weren't we trying at one time? It seems like a year or so ago to repurpose a Kodak film factory on the East Coast into a pharmaceutical that had everything it needed.
Yeah.
You don't have the clean rooms and everything. I wonder what happened to that.
Well, follow the money. That's how you figure it out. Hey, Terry, thank you for the call.
Great call, Terry. Thank you.
Terry makes a really good point, and it's really quite scary to me. Why does the Western world, why does the United States allow the majority of our drugs to be manufactured outside the United States? There should be some kind of a rule legally where they can't do that. Just like, we have strict rules about food and how it's grown. Even if it's grown in another country, there are strict rules about how it has to be.
Yeah, but when it gets right down to it, those rules are easily subjugated to money, and often are. A great example of that is the word organic.
Oh, no, I understand that.
It's a $50 billion a year word. And so everybody wants to be an organics, right? Because it's worth $50 billion a year. Mm-hmm. So what if you can't quite fit into the narrow definition of organic? Well, you go to Washington, D.C. with a suitcase of money, and you bend the rules a little bit. As a consequence of that, we now have organic hydroponic food.
Yeah, which is completely a misnomer, because in order for it to be organic, there's got to be dirt involved.
So, and what about milk? The FDA's rules about milk is that it comes from a mammal. That's what milk is. And yet you go to the grocery store.
Yeah, there's no such thing as almond milk.
Yeah, soy milk, almond milk, oat milk, everything's milk.
No, it's not milk.
So
I'm sorry.
Is there a word more valuable in the English language than milk? If you think about it, mother's milk. What a precious word.
Yeah,
and if you can steal that word, so Washington.
But let me get back to my concern, because it really does worry me. I don't want the people I care about taking medications that help them stay alive, and have that medication made in China. Not that there's anything wrong with China, but I don't trust the Chinese government. I'm sorry.
You need to think about
it. Billy, FDA bought by a big pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah, I do know that.
So,
well,
how can they regulate it then?
Well,
they will do what they say.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Amy's correct.
Yeah, well, see, when we trying to spend money to go to store to buy something made in China, we need to keep in mind, when we are buying those things, we are actually sacrificing the security of the lifestyle of our future
and we're
generation.
Supporting the communist government of China.
That's right.
Let's put it that way. Yep. All right, we have Robert in Watsonville. Robert's been on the line for a little while. Robert, thank you for calling China Uber Alice.
Hey, how you doing today? I really like your show, and then I just wanted to make a few comments in regards of China, U.S. There's a lot of things that we have to look at when it comes to what China does and what has been doing for many years, such as we blame having to do with the environment, but United States was the one, and many other countries went to China to get cheap labor. And yet they point the finger. At one point, we need to look back and look at ourselves and see how much
Amen.
How much resources we waste every day, such as, you name it, 2-3 years you want to change your car, 2-3 years you dispose all these food that you don't use, 3-5 days you go and do all these other things. If you add up all the waste that gets done, they're all resources, and then you have to understand that at one point we have to look at our life, the way we live, so that we can pinpoint the really issue. The issue is that America uses a lot of energy, and there's no way to substitute it unless you get real cold, real energy that we get. Unfortunately, we're trying to make that switch to a more solar type of a system or a recyclable type of energy, but that's the bottom line. And then I see many countries that are in the same situation. It's not just USA. You go to Mexico, there's a lot of people migrating to Mexico basically to do the same thing. Why? Because, as you might know, land is the one that's going to give you the resources for any economy to grow. The downside of it is America, for those few that want to get really wealthy, those few that want to get all this money, that's the ones we should be pointing the finger at, because those are companies where those few that wanted to make a buck, they went overseas, and guess what? We pay in dollars to these people, but they're always camouflage themselves with these corporations and names, and we don't target the specific people that are actually going right now. I'll give you an example. You name major companies, Amazon, Tesla, I could go down the list. You name it, they're going overseas. No one is questioning that. Why? Why are we not questioning it? Why is it that we don't put a tax, 100% tax, that if you take a company overseas, guess what? When you bring it back and want to sell it to the United States, you're going to pay a big tax, huge tax that it's not going to be
tariff.
Worth it.
You mean tariff?
Correct. And then that way you'd be like, hey, you know what? It doesn't make sense. Why don't we just build a home?
Yeah, but what happened when we tried that recently? You know what happened when we tried that recently. The guy that tried it got his butt kicked out of office.
Correct. But guess what? The person that was in charge, which is Trump, delivered the message in the wrong way. You know why he delivered the message in the wrong way? Because he couldn't deliver the message. The message was there, but he couldn't deliver it correctly because the way that he was saying things about ethnic groups and basically separating certain stuff. I agree with the policies that he had, but the message couldn't be delivered with love. There was no love to it, and then that's the reason why he failed, especially with all these. You go with immigration, you go with all these different ethnic groups, and then he starts calling people XYZ. Guess what? You're not building bridges, you're burning bridges. So,
well, you're right. That's what people say. His greatest failing was that he was not very good at communicating.
He wasn't a good diplomat at all.
A good diplomat.
Exactly.
Now he was unrectified.
You're right.
Hey, Robert, thank you for the call. You made some great points. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, we have, who's next? That would be Jan in the San Lorenzo Valley, if I push the right button. Hello, Jan.
Hi, Non and Amy and Billy. Been listening to your shows and reading the Epoch Times, and I realize how much China has infiltrated our whole society, and it's so dangerous. After 17 years of schooling, I came to the decision, my last research paper was that we should go back to the farm, get away from the city, get independent, learn to create our own products, our clothes, our ceramics, our wood, all different products. And you didn't need nursing homes for the parents because the grandparents, because the parents and the kids were there.
Well, Jan, you make a good point, but unfortunately, Michael Olson has another program on this radio station that points out some really horrible things about trying to do just what you said.
I know, Billy, but there's other things that have happened. We do have the Internet now, that we can sell things on the Internet.
No, what I'm saying, though, is, for instance, Michael Olson did a series of programs on the food chain, the other program that he does, and he was pointing out the fact that the government has gotten in the middle of you selling your milk to your neighbor and them selling their honey to you.
But there is a wonderful revolt going on by some unrectified people, especially in places like Wyoming, where they have food freedom laws now, where people can do exactly what Jan is talking about.
Good, I'm glad to hear it.
Well, Michael, also...
What's that, Amy?
I say so sad, Jen, that we cannot be a country girl again.
Yeah. I think we can. I think we can, but we have not pushed our weight around. We are in these big cities, and these politicians have the power of all these people. But if we disperse around the world, we take that power away from them, and we can become powerful in our own little communities, in our own little groups. We can talk to each other. We can go to church again. We can have our little red schoolhouse. We can grow our own food. We don't need gyms for people to go to, because there's plenty of exercise while you're working on your crops.
But let me ask Jan. Let me ask you the question that immediately comes to mind when you talk about this. We can do all of those things, but can we fight big money?
We have to.
You know how you can do it?
We have to.
All you have to do is take the 2x2 pledge.
Right.
If you take the 2x2 pledge, I promise to buy $2 worth of local food every day,
right,
and I promise to talk 2 other people into doing the same thing. That's all we need to do to take control back.
Hey, Jan, thank you for the call. We're running out of time, and I've got one more caller. Thanks for calling. Let's see if we can get Kenny in Watsonville on, if I push the right button here. Kenny, you're on China Uber Alice.
Hello, lady and gentlemen. I love that idea of the 2x2 pledge, Michael. That's perfect. And I was wondering, have any of you ever just typed into a search engine the simple phrase, "Made in America"? Try it. Any search engine. I like DuckDuckGo because I don't like to support the big hammer people.
There you go.
But if you type that in there, there's a bunch of websites that have lists of products that are made in America, and you can't always buy them online, but most of the time you can, and they do provide the places where they're featured. So I would suggest that people begin by doing that simple thing. Also, promote the heck out of the Epoch Times. My gosh. I wait every week for my hard copy of that to come, and I just love it. I read it.
Kenny, just be glad you don't live in Hong Kong, because they still haven't got the press up yet.
I'm really glad I don't live anywhere near there.
Yeah.
But also, there's the phrase "anywhere but China," ABC, and what that leads to is, in the interim, if you can't find something made in America, buy it from India, or buy it from somebody in Sri Lanka, or anywhere that's not really China-controlled. And that will at least defund them. Even if it doesn't refund us, it will defund the Chinese.
Kenny, you hit the nail on the head with that one. If every country were to join in this boycott, we could overcome the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, Kenny,
that is the one hope there is.
That's a great idea, and let's start with boycotting the Beijing Olympic.
You know what? That's not a bad idea.
Let's just start and say this ABC movement.
That's a really good... Kenny, thank you for the help here, and it's good to hear your voice again.
Yeah, Kenny, are you one of the...
I know who. This is Kenny. I won't say his name.
Yes, I know, but I was just wondering if he's one of the unrectified.
Are you unrectified, Kenny?
Yes.
Yep, I'm a rectified rebel.
Thanks for your call, man. It's good to hear your voice again.
Likewise.
Take care. Look, we are almost out of time here. We have been talking about ways to improve our existence and to try to maybe fight the Communist Party in China a little bit. We have a website. I've mentioned it a couple of times. I'm going to mention it one more time. ChinaUberAlice.com. Please go there. Please check out all the information on that website. We want you to get as informed as you can. And we promise we'll be back doing this every week from 2 to 4 on your Thursday.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is we're going to break 1.5 billion people out of jail in China.
That's a good idea.
It's true. China today is just like a big jail. I mean, the people living there, it's like living controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. They put up a big jail and to seize all these people.
We got to take our last break. We will be back on China Uber Alice in just a moment. Grab and Go Sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
Family owned, father and son operated. Why is the Big O Tire in Santa Cruz always so busy? Because the father and son team of Mark and Kyle Spoonberg have no corporate managers telling them what to do, and so are free to treat their customers like family. To be treated like family, take your car or truck to the family-owned, father and son-operated Big O Tire and Service Center on SoCal in Santa Cruz.
Coast Paper and Supply is a local, family-owned supply business right here in Santa Cruz since 1948. They've been proudly serving the Central Coast through this COVID-19 pandemic. Sanitation is a serious concern during this pandemic, and Coast Paper and Supply is open to offer you the widest selection of janitorial supplies to be found anywhere. With their excellent selection of quality products and customer service, discover why many local businesses, schools, and households choose to shop at Coast Paper and Supply. You can find Coast Paper and Supply at 151 Josephine Street in Santa Cruz, open weekdays 8 to 4 p.m. Or you can give them a call at 831-423-3350. You can also check out their website at coastpapersupplyinc.com. That's Coast Paper and Supply, keeping local businesses and households supplied since 1948.
Well, that's just about it for our program today. I want to thank Amy Howe for her story and setting up our show once again today. Thank you, Amy. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And Nan, we'll look forward to your latest reporting in the Epic Times. And we want to thank, of course, Michael Olson for his contributions as well, because, I've learned so much stuff on this program. I wish my history classes were a little better.
再见好同学
再见好同学 We're going to all have a rectification.
Yes, we are.
This time.
Thank you, Amy. By the way, if you want to stay tuned to KSCO, coming up next is Flight 1080, and himself, Dave Michaels, is at the controls tonight, so it'll be a good show. We invite you to stick around. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be here next week from 2 to 4 on Thursday. You're listening to AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz, and it's time now